Hi, a very good afternoon, everyone. Okay, thank you so much for joining our webinar tonight. Okay, first let me introduce myself first. I'm Dexter. I'm a dealer representative in Berjaya Securities. Okay, and today our topics will be focused on inflations, especially inflations in Malaysia's, and we will go through what are some of the incidents that caused the inflations coming back and how does the inflations impact the stock market in Malaysia. Okay, but I have to highlight that later on all the informations that I share are just solely for of personal opinions and solely for informational and educational purposes only, and all of the company that I mentioned cannot be constructed as a buy and sell recommendations. Okay, so if you really want to do investment decisions, please consult your investment advisor. Okay, and investment always come with a risk, so please do your own due diligence before you act in any investment decisions. Okay, so first we have to go through a very brief ones on what actually happens and what are things, why is it the inflation will be back, what are the incidents that trigger the inflations. Okay, so on February's US and Israel has just strikes on Iran's, and just few hours when the war began, we see the subprime crisis, the subprime leaders was killed, and this triggered a revenge on of Iran's on Israel. Okay, this is where the war starts. Okay, and in March, Iran even closed down the Straits of Hormuz, which is one of the most vital maritime energies choke point in Middle East, and this is where we see all the oil price. Okay, has been spiking and the crisis have been happening. Okay, and during the war periods, there's lots of oil infrastructures and facilities in Middle East also been destroyed. Okay, this further to cut down the supplies in the oil market. Okay, even though during these periods, Iran and US is trying to nego and trying to reach a peace talk agreements. Okay, but due to disagreements on the key conditions, so causing that all these talks has been stalled for quite some times. Okay, and just recently, US and Iran has finally reached the peace deal. Okay, and Iran even agreed to open back the Straits of Hormuz, and this is why we are seeing that reason the oil price has been pulling back so sharply. Okay, although right now they are still on negotiations and the Strait of Hormuz is still closed, but we are seeing that the oil price has been pulling back quite sharply, and this market does not react quite strongly on the reclose of the Straits of Hormuz. So overall still suggests that the market are still positive on the talk and seeing that the Strait of Hormuz are likely to be open. Okay, so why is it the Strait of Hormuz so important? When it close, will trigger the whole inflation's happenings or even create a crisis in the oil market. Okay, so actually, Straits of Hormuz is a choke point allocated among the Middle East country. You can look at a map here. Okay, and as we know, Middle East is the largest producer of oil and gas and natural gas. On the global markets. Okay, and they are the largest exporter. Okay, and we can see over here there's 30% of oils have to ship through the Straits of Hormuz, and also 20% of the liquefied natural gas. Okay, so once the Hormuz has been closed, all the ships cannot be shipped through the Hormuz, the choke point. Okay, so that's why causing the sharp drop in the oil supply and causing the crisis happen. Okay, and since the war began in February, the daily traffic was down around 95%. Okay, so nearly all of the ships cannot go through here. Oh, that's why causing such crisis was happening. Okay, and we can see during the first day market where after the war happens, see the market, the oil price has spiked up, okay, and all the way push up to highest levels is around $120 per barrel, okay, which is around 77% risen before the pre-war levels, whereas around $67.28 dollar per barrel. And even though the talk has been going on, that's why we are seeing that the oil price has pulled back, and but overall are still sideways around 105 to 86 dollar per barrel, and which is quite high compared to the pre-war levels. Okay, and we look back to Malaysia's case. Our Malaysia petrol price around 95, 97, and diesel also spiked up quite sharply. And I'm sure for those who drive car will feel it very pain. Okay, if without the subsidized, okay, can see like for example, RON 95 in pre-war levels is around 2 ringgit 77 2 ringgit 67 cent before subsidized, and after the war happens, the highest went to 4 ringgit 27 cents, and the craziest one is the diesel. Okay, from around 2 ringgit 12 cents all the way shoot up to 6 ringgit 72 cents. Is nearly 115% of rise. Okay, and even with the pullback in the oil price as the negotiations going on, you can see this is snapshot on 11th of June. The RON 95 are still high compared to the pre-war levels, which is around 3 ringgit 72 cents, and this tells you around 4 ringgit 67 cents. Okay, and besides of a fuel price, petrol price, the liquefied nature's gas price has actually also risen quite a lot, as Middle East also the largest exporter for all this LNG. Okay, you can see over here the article mentioned here, the close of the Strait of Hormuz actually has cut off about fifth of the global LNG supply. Okay, which are largely exported from Qatar, United Arab Emirates. Okay, and the analysts even expect that the LNG price may even spike up higher in the coming quarters due to the hot weathers and the restocking activities in the Europe has even boost for the demands, and they are seeing that there may be 30% more upside space for LNG price. Okay, and you can see as the oil price and the liquefied nature's gas price has been spiking, Malaysia proxy oil and gas companies also have quite sharply reflected this in their share price. Like for example, we can see over here, Heng Yuan refining companies, the share price has spiked out from around 90 cents levels all the way to 2 ringgits, about 134%. Okay, within a half month's time only. Okay, and for Hibiscus also, the share price has risen nearly 70%. Okay, quite sharply up just within a very short period of time. Okay, and after before when we come to talking about the fuel and also the nature's gas, one of the things that we also have to mention is that from the fuel that the TNB used uh, to generate electrics, most of the fuels they use actually is charcoal, which stand around 39%, and 30% is actually from natural gas, and then 14% is from hydro. Okay, and then 10% for renewable energies, and others is 10%, which is oil and diesel. Okay, so if you look at the pie charts, we can notice that actually gas also contribute quite heavy on the power generation usage. Okay, and we look at here. Okay, it mentions the 80% of nature's gas for the power sectors are actually supplied from domestic. However, the remaining of a 20% balance are actually imported from Australia's, okay, which means it's not from Malaysia's, okay, then which is more subject to the market price. Okay, so whenever the fluctuations in the fuel like oil and especially nature's gas, okay, will cause the utility, sorry, will cause will lead to the cost for TNB to generate electrics are more higher and expensive. And our electric commissions has just implements new policies on the utility bills. I know you guys should know it is not as a AFA, which is providing some rebate. It is a auto adjustment mechanism, okay, that apply to the utility bill whenever the actual price of a fuel is lower compared to the benchmark ones. Then we will see some rebate on our utility bills. Okay. However, right now the case is that all these fuels has been rising. So the forecast made by the TNB mentions that the rebate may just maybe will up to this year July only. Then afterwards we might even see the surcharge on our utility bills due to the difference of the actual fuel price and the benchmark fuel price are getting narrow. Okay. So actually, so all this fuel like gas, nature's gas, and utilities and the petrol, what are the basics cost for most of uh, like us consumers and also for the manufacturers. So all this actually impact us quite heavily. And beside of utilities, we are also seeing the most common thing is plastic, okay, plastic packagings, okay. So the raw material to produce plastic packagings is the plastic resin, okay. And the key feedstocks for producing the plastic resins actually also need crude oil and nature's gas. So in such crisis happenings, so we are seeing that the rising price actually has rise up quite sharply. Okay, average is around 80% in just few months time. Okay, if you look at the producer price index by industries, and this chart is showing plastic materials and rising manufacturers one, you can see the price has also the index has shoot up, okay, from 304 to nearly 330, okay, which risen around 8%, okay, just 2 months time, okay. And this one are showing the PPI index for plastic packaging frame and sheet manufacturing. You can see also spike up, okay, nearly 7%. Okay, and of course, the plastic proxies companies also reflected as the market expect their net profits will be better compared to the previous quarter. So, like for example, Tongguan here is one of the plastic manufacturers in Malaysia. Okay, so their share price has shot up nearly 48%. Okay, within 2 months' time, and then for BP Plastic as well, also spike up nearly 43%. Okay, so beside of plastic, the fertilizer price, okay, that we use for plantation sectors, we plant for our fruits, vegetables, okay, the fertilizer we use are also rising in the price as most of the fertilizers like nitrogen-based urea are mostly supplied from the Middle East. So with the closures of the Strait of Hormuz actually create supply concerns in the urea and causing the price and shooting up quite high, nearly 83%. Okay, and in Malaysia case, our urea, 27% of the urea fertilizers actually is imported from the Gulf country, which is Middle East, and we actually have alternative. We also supply most of the urea fertilizer from Russia and China. Okay, however, China and Russia have decided to suspend the export due to they want to prioritize the domestic supply first. Okay, so this actually have removed most of the alternative source, okay, for Malaysia's, and causing our fertilizer price also spike up quite highly. Okay, and of course the proxies company for fertilizer also rising. Can see like for example Cropmat is the fertilizer producer in Malaysia, and I think just listed last year okay, and you can see the share price has spiked up quite sharply 32%, and the reason pullback is because of MSCC cases happens on the company and cause some selling pressures in the companies. Okay, and besides is the Petronas Chemical. Petronas Chemical is the largest urea producer in Malaysia. Okay, so their share price also reflected quite sharply on the urea price. Okay, so the share price has spiked out nearly 105% just within 1 month times. Okay, and after we have mentioned like all this petrol, fertilizer, plastic, the utilities bills, all these costs are actually rising. Then what about the inflation? That what is the inflation data told us? Okay, so if we look into February's inflation data, you can see that actually our February inflations is around 1.9%. Okay, it's risen from 1.4% in February. And if you look in more details by categories, we can see the transportation actually is the largest contributions to the inflations. Okay, as the transportation sectors is the first layer hit by the fuel price. As you know, transportations you need petrol, diesel, all this to operate. So when the price of petrol rising, so this is the first layer being hit lah. Okay, so we can see in April the largest contributions is transportations. Okay, however, even though we are seeing some increase in our inflation's rate, okay, but overall compared to the regional economies, our Malaysia still consider quite okay. Okay, because if you look at some regional country like Philippines, their inflation around 7.2%, Vietnam around 5.5, Korea 2.6, and Indonesia around 2.4. Okay, and in April we are still seeing the inflation pressures are still quite concentrate on specific components on it, and have not yet spread into other households expenditures. Okay, but when it comes to May inflation's data, we are seeing the overall inflations have even risen to 2%. And if you this time we look into more details by categories, we can see that the impact has actually spread into other components such as like housing, utilities, gas, and other fuels. Okay, and then food and beverage, restaurants, accommodation services. You can see the effects of the inflations has actually start to spread over other categories. Okay, and the Age article even mentioned that the May inflation's data in Malaysia has accelerated to the fastest phase in the nearly 2 years times. Okay, as the price of food has gained speed. Okay, but overall the inflations are still remain boom compared to the other Asia's country. Okay. Okay, so with all this inflation data showing that inflations are actually happening, so economists do also warn that the consumers and the business may start to feel the inflation pressures, okay, due to the higher energies and logistic costs, okay, built up by the Middle East. Okay, and when all these basic costs has been rising, so for business like you open factories to manufacture products one, okay, actually they will feel that their margins being pressed, okay, if they are unable to transfer their all these additional costs to their to consumer in a very short periods of time. So this may actually cause them have a higher cost, which we might see their profit margins will be compressed, getting narrow. Okay, and economists also mentions that there might be a potential accelerations in the consumer inflations in between May to July. Okay, so even with we are seeing that all this data, the warnings from economists, but our Bank of Malaysia are still remain quite conservative on the inflations on our rates. Okay, as mentioned as in the May committees meetings. Okay, so this is a statement made by Bank of Malaysia, the committees. Okay, overall the statements are still remain quite conservative. They are decided to remain the OPR rate at 2.75%. Okay, as they think that the our Malaysia's economy are still growing and the inflations are still under control. Okay, and they think that the current rate are the most suit rate for current Malaysia's economic growth and status. Okay, so overall they are still quite conservative on it, and the tone, all the words and tone they use are likely to tell us that this year Bank of Malaysia are unlikely to increase the OPR rate. Okay, this is also quite in line with most of the economy forecasts. Okay, we can see on the right corner right here. Only two economists predict that this year Bank of Malaysia may hike the rate on the coming quarters. Okay, and okay, so now come to a questions. Even though we are seeing the all these warnings, inflation data, we are seeing the real impact. Okay, but right now seems like the oil price has been dropping, and then the U.S. and Iran has going quite a great progress in their peace talk. Okay, and seems like the impacts are getting normal, and things are getting back to normal. Okay, so does it mean that all the things will be recovered in a very short periods of time? Does the oil supply, all this will be back to full recovers in very short periods of time? The answer is no. Okay, we can see over here, the Strait of Hormuz has been closed for quite some times. So for all these logistics like shipments, all this, they actually take times to be normalized. As currently the port must be very congressed, they are very jammed there. Okay, and it takes time for them to reschedule, okay, to plan everything, to let all the ships out from there. Okay, it takes times. Okay, their forecast that will be take around a few months, 2 to 3 months times to rebalance everything. Okay, and with all those damage all infrastructures and equipments. Okay, it also takes time for them to repair all these infrastructures. Okay, it takes about a few years or even few months or even few years to repair all these infrastructures. Okay, so in a very short period of time, we can't see all the supply, all the crisis will be solved in a very short time. So we are likely to see the oil prices are still remain at higher levels compared to previous one. Okay, and all these things that already rise price one will still remain. Okay, it unlikely to come down in a very short periods of time. Okay, so this is why we have to really look into on the inflation impact on all or on the companies that we have invested, or we have some of the stocks that we want to invest. Okay, these are the factors that we might really look into. How does the inflation's impact will affect their net profit margins or even their business? Okay, so now come to the most vital questions is, how does this inflation's cause how does this inflation's impact will impact on the various sectors, and what are the things that we might really need to monitor on? Okay, and does all these incidents like war incidents and the inflations only brings negative impact to the companies or even the sectors? Okay, okay. Some for all these incidents, some are actually bringing some opportunities to some sectors. Okay, like for example, oil and gas countries. If we recap back a few months back, okay, some of the country they have forced to touch their oil reserve, okay, as there's insufficient oil for their countries to use, so they have no choice. They have to release some of their oil reserve, okay, and causing there some consumptions in their oil reserve. And you can look over here as the U.S. oil reserve has hit the lowest point, okay, since the 1983, okay, during the war was happening, sir. Okay, and right now, if the oil supplies are coming back in the market and the oil price has been normalizing, okay, and one thing we can expect is that all this country who has consumed, okay, their oil reserve, they are likely to have restocking activities, right, in their countries, and they may even restock to a certain level that are more to that is more compared to reserve. They may restock the oil reserve to higher levels compared to the previous one, as they may want to stock more. So next time, if all these incidents happens, they have more oils like to drag the time. They may survive even longer. Okay, so this all these restocking activities do provide some demands in the oil price. Okay, even though we are seeing right now the oil price has been pulling back quite strongly. Okay, but I believe that when it pull back to certain levels, with all these restocking activities has coming in, oil price will be slowly rebound back due to the demands from all these restocking activities. Beside of the restocking activities, and beside of the restocking activities, with the rebuilding activities in Middle East, okay, they want to rebuild their oil infrastructures. All this it do also benefits some midstreams oil and gas companies, as there will be demands on all these services, and they might sub all these projects to our local oil and gas companies. Okay, okay. So for Malaysia side, we are actually seeing that there is 6.1 billion of projects opportunities, oil and gas service opportunities from Middle East. From Middle East to rebuild their oil infrastructures and the equipments. Okay, so okay, Dang is one of the companies that are located as midstreams companies, and they are quite strong in maintenance, providing maintenance, constructions, and even modification services. Okay, and they also have the expertise in providing hookup and commissioning services. These are all of the service that might need or may have demands in the coming quarters due to the rebuilding activities. And Dayang are most of the projects Dayang secure are mostly focused on the brownfield assets, which are those refinery or offshore oil and gas offshore platform that are already finished built and that require some repairings, maybe maintenance services. This is where the Dayang come from. And I believe that the first thing that the Middle East do whenever things are get settled, okay, is to restore and to maintain their existing productions, pipelines, and their sites instead of building the new one. Okay, if you look at the graph, diagram graph, we can see started from May, it actually is having a quite sharp pullback in the share price. Okay, due to the oil price has been weakening. Okay, so the price, so that's why the market also pricing these factors. Okay, and there are some of the supports that we might look into is 1 ringgit 59 cents and 1 ringgit 49 cents level, and I believe that with the restocking activities, we might see some rebound in the oil price, and this is where we can see oil and gas counters may get some support on their price. Okay. Okay, so the next one is Ventris. Okay, for this one, if you are more risk taker, you are willing to commit more, a little bit more on the risk side, okay, you may consider Ventris. Okay, as Ventris is previous time is a very large oil and gas companies in 1990s. Okay, and previously he has a track records in doing projects in Middle East like Saudi Aramco. Okay, and their expertise even is their business are covered on EPCIC, which stand for engineering, procurement, constructions, installation, and commissionings. And they even cover subsea areas, and they have pipeline capacities. Okay, and with their business skill, they're able to secure large scale kind of projects. Okay, but Ventris is a PM17's company, so the market might quite concerned on this status. Okay, so this is why we seeing that Ventris price is quite weak perform compared to the others oil and gas companies, right? Okay, so some of the support that we might look into is around 29.5 cents and 25 cents levels. Okay, beside is plantation sectors. Okay, if you have monitored quite closely on the market, you may notice that actually during the periods where the oil price has been spiking quite high, okay, the CPO crude palm oil as an alternative oil for the crude oil, okay, as actually the price also rising together, same directions with the crude oil as well, okay. But if you notice recently, after the oil price has been pulling back, but the the palm oil price does not actually pull back and even rises. Okay, that's because there's other factors that supporting the price. Okay, is like El Nino effect. Okay, so the analyst has estimated the El Nino are likely to happen in the coming quarters, and it will cause a heat wave. Okay, so what happens when the heat wave hit? Okay, on plantation sectors, usually when the weather is very hot, okay, there's less rainfall, and we will see our plantation sectors will have a lower productions compared to uh, I mean like normal value lah. Okay, so like for example, if you look back on 2016 El Nino incidents, okay, CPO productions in Malaysia actually has fallen 13.2% year on year, and for Indonesia sites, their palm oil producers have actually dropped uh, 13.4% of their outputs. Okay, and as we know, Indonesia's and Malaysia's is the largest palm oil producers in the global markets. Okay, so when all this heat wave hit on our plantation sectors, okay, with a lower productions, it's actually will tighten the market conditions and provide supports on the CPO price. And this is the reasons why we are seeing the palm oil price and plantation sectors has been quite supported and even have quite heavy buying interest, okay, in some of the plantation counters. Okay, and okay, for US side, you can see the reasons the Fed meetings they have turned their tone to more hawkish side. Okay, they are even expecting that the Fed will have a rate hike in the coming quarters. Okay, this is why the USD has been rebounding, okay, so strongly, okay, against Malaysia ringgit, and in the other word is Malaysia ringgit are weakening against US dollar. Okay, so when Malaysia ringgit weakening against US dollar, we might expect that the attractiveness in FCPO price would for CPO will be more attractive as soybeans, oil, all this so-called by oil are priced in US dollar. Okay, so with USD more strengthening against Malaysia ringgit, so it actually decreased the attractiveness as the forex cost has been rising. Okay, so this further provides some support on our CPO price. And but one of the risks that we might take into considerations is the new Indonesia export policy, where they want to categorize all the palm oil export in Indonesia in order to resolve their underpricings or under invoicing palm oil, okay, and maximize the government's revenue. Okay, why does this new export policies cause Malaysia palm oil export fee pressures? Okay, as analysts expect that with all this uh, under invoicing and underpricing palm oil issue happening in Indonesia, some of the buyer may turn the palm oil purchase from Indonesia, as there is some cheapos palm oil supply from Indonesia. Okay, and that's why it increased. Okay, it decreased the competitiveness for Malaysia's palm oil export. Okay, as we can see in our Malaysia palm oil export data in May, we see that our export has fallen 6.2% compared to the previous months. Okay, and this volume is the lowest since February, and followed by a 14% drop in April. Okay, and our palm oil stockpile in Malaysia actually have climbed to the fastest phase. Okay, due to the sharp drop in the exports. Okay, the stockpile. There's also one of the factors is because usually the next semi-quarter for plantation stocks, plantation sectors, usually there will be more supply productions in the next half quarters. Okay, but before the El Nino incidents hit lah. But the things will change when the El Nino incidents hits on Malaysia plantation and Indonesia plantation sectors. Okay, so the plantation stocks that we might have a look is housing plantations. As housing plantation usually will have the higher production, CPO productions compared to the other peers, especially during the hot weather. Okay, that's why I put housing plantations as one of the example here. Okay, and I think today the price is around 2 ringgit 30 cents already, no longer 2 ringgit 20 cents. This is the snapshots I snap it on 17th of June. Okay, so right now the price is around 2 ringgit 31 cents. So some of the support we may look into is around this level, 2 ringgit 29 cents. If there is any pullback, okay, that might represent any opportunities. Okay, and the next sectors that we might want to look into is the banking sectors. Okay, so banking sectors actually are quite negative impacted by all these inflations incidents and the Middle East, as people are expecting the inflation's impact will slow down the economy, Malaysia economy. Okay, as you yourself maybe will feel that some of the big corporations, okay, are actually implementing the cost optimization policies. Okay, and maybe some of your friends has been laid off. Okay, I just saw some of the posts in Facebook. Okay, quite a lot of people sharing that they're being laid off by their companies. Okay, due to companies are cutting their costs, cutting costs. Okay, so that's why they're being laid off. Okay, so this actually has contributed to Malaysia's jobless rate. You can see over here, Malaysia jobless rate in April has risen to the 6-month high. Okay, because of the oil crisis, all these corporations are saving their costs and causing this all these things are happenings. Okay, and with things are getting expensive, so of course consumers and company, instead of just implementing the cost optimization policies, they might even be more selective and more cautious in doing their investment decisions, and they might try to delay some of their investment. Okay, and for consumer, of course, we might try to avoid to purchase some of the heavy commitments, things like house or car, or we might stop purchasing all those luxuries good. Okay, as we have the pressures from the food is rising and the risk being laid off by the companies. All this, okay. So this all this has been causing the slowing down in the loan growth in banking sectors, okay, due to the economic uncertainty and high inflations. Okay, there's one thing that we might also look into is the potential rate hike from Bank Negara Malaysia. Although right now the tone, okay, and the expectations are likely to be more towards Bank Negara Malaysia will not increase the OPR rate. But however, when we look around surrounding like regional central bank, okay, we are seeing that actually most of the bank are in a hawkish tone, and they are trying to give hint to the market that they might want to increase the rates. Okay, so when all these regional economies they have raised the rate, and we will see Malaysia ringgit will be weakening against them. Okay, and if and plus if the war are unsettled yet and the inflation is getting worse, so we might even see that the Bank Negara Malaysia will change their tone, okay, to more hawkish one, and maybe there will be a rate hike. Okay, so this is one of the factors that we might really need to consider when we are committing our investments into banking sectors, as as the rate hike will cause some pressures on the bank net interest margins. Okay. Okay. So this is the article where the analysts also warn that the Malaysia's bank may feel the pressures due to the inflation risk is rising. Okay, we can see over here they estimate that the high loan growth in the first quarter of 2026 may not sustain. Okay, for the next 2 to 3 quarters, as the companies have adopted a more cautious investments, and the consumer are slowed down in purchase some big tickets items. Okay, so causing the bank loan growth are slowing down. Okay. Okay, of course, with all this economy slowing down, the slowing in the loan growth, and the layoff has been happening. So the most vulnerable type of loan that give out by the banks are SME loan and consumer credits in here, which comprise the personal financing and also some credit cards loans. Okay. So when economy is getting back, the first hit one usually is those small and enterprise companies, small and medium enterprise. Usually they will be hit the hardest compared to the big corporations, and the next will be consumers in their personal loan. Okay, especially credit cards and personal loan financing lah. Okay, so in if you look at in this table, we can see that the largest exposures on these two type of loan actually is Airbnb, which is aligned banks. Okay, so you can see over here the exposure for aligned banks actually is on SME loan is stand around 34.1%, and consumer credits around 11.3%. This is also explained why the Airbnb having the highest gross impaired loan compared to the other peers. Okay, stand around 1.89%. Okay, and oh, by the way, the gross impairment loans is for those, just in case for those audience who do not know what is gross impairment loan. Gross impairment loan actually is the loan that has been taken into account that that the bad debt happens. Okay, so we can see the highest one means like are likely to have bad debt and they have impairment debt. Okay, and we can see in such economic backgrounds with the loans slowing down, economies are slowing down, and all those borrowers are likely to unable to pay their loan. Okay, so in this incidents, we might really need to carefully choose the bank with those with lower risk one, like for example, lowest impairment loan kind of bank, which is public bank and also Hong Leong Bank. Lah. You can see these two banks is as the lowest just 0.15% only compared to the other peers. Okay, so these two banks are actually quite conservative and also explain that why public banks share price has so defensive. It's not drop does not drop much compared to the other banks lah. If you look back to the chart lah, okay, okay. And to recap back what we have mentioned just now, all the sectors. Okay, so the first sectors that we mentioned is oil and gas sectors, which may be benefited from the restocking activities and the rebuilding activities in Middle East oil infrastructures and facilities. Okay, so that's actually provide some project opportunities to our local oil and gas sectors companies like Dayang and Ventris. And the second one is the plantation sectors, which the El Nino likely to cut down our palm oil supplies, which will support the CPO price, and the rebound in the oil price may also further provide some support in CPO price. Beside that, there's one risk that we might really have to take consideration is the new export policies in Indonesia may increase the competitions in the plantation sectors, and we are seeing our May palm oil export data has been dropping quite sharply. Okay, and some of the stocks that we might look into is housing plantations, and of course some of the plantation counter as well, such as like JPG and United Plantation as well. Okay. And lastly is the banking sectors, okay, which is higher jobless of rates, okay, due to the companies have starting to implement the cost optimizations, cut down their costs, and the layoff is happening, and consumer likely to have a cautious spending behavior compared to previous time. So all this will actually slow down the lending activities in banking sectors, and with a potentials of a rate hike may even hurts the bank's NIM. So in all this economies backdrops, we might really need to select those bank or collect those bank with more conservative on their loan portfolios. Okay, that's it from what I want to share tonight. Okay, and now we have come to a Q&A sessions. If you have any questions that you want to ask, feel free to drop it on the comment sections and I will answer it accordingly. Okay, while we are waiting from the question from the floor, okay, let me make some ads first. Okay, okay. Actually, our Interpack, we have communities for community groups for our clients. Okay, so this is where we will share our daily opinions on what's happens on yesterday US market and what are the opportunities today, and we might even share some of the good technical setup shares to our clients, and even some of the news that we think that might excite the markets, and where are the risks or the opportunities, and how likely the markets, what of the actions that the market may take on certain big news. Okay, so if you are interested to join the group, okay, feel free to scan the QR code below. Okay, it will link you to my personal contact. Okay, so you just tell me, hey Dexter, I want to join the communities group. So I will send you the link, invitation link, to get you to join into our community. Okay, so that's it from me. Thank you. Let's see if you have any question from the floor. Okay, if there is no questions, then we will call the end of our sessions. Okay, if afterwards you have any questions, you can also contact me personally and I will answer you personally, right? Okay, so, okay, since we have no questions, then I will end the session here. Okay, once again, thank you so much for joining our event tonight. Okay, we have more events on the coming soon, and please follow our social medias. Okay, so make sure you won't miss out any of the exciting webinar or event or even video. Okay, so thank you so much and good luck in your trading journey and all the best, and see you in the next webinar. Goodbye.